So the two hottest devices that are there right now, that are out right now, that just came out. Of course, we've got the OnePlus 8 Pro and the OnePlus 8. The shimmery, mirrored, million color kind of thing over here. Very exciting times, at least for OnePlus. And they've got some accessories to go with both of these devices, so I figured might as well unbox those, take a closer look. Of course, this one right here is the one that I'm most excited for, and unfortunately, the regular OnePlus 8 can't take advantage of it. This is the Warp Charge wireless charger, 30-watt wireless charging for the OnePlus 8 Pro. Very exciting for wireless charge fans like myself. What does it say on the package? Not much. That's about it. OnePlus Warp Charge 30 wireless charger. Now, it's not quite as fast. It's a tiny bit slower than plugging into the wall with the fast charger that ships with either of these two devices, but it's super close, which is a big step for wireless charging, in my opinion. Now, there's also some cases in here. There's a OnePlus 8 Pro sandstone bumper case in this cyan color. I feel like that's a new thing for them. There's also a OnePlus 8 nylon bumper case in black and a OnePlus 8 Pro carbon bumper case. This is a lot like the later case. In fact, this case, an inspiration for the later case, which, by the way, I will be making as well. It's in pre-order stage right now, so you can get your order in if you want the absolute thinnest case for either the OnePlus 8 Pro or the OnePlus 8. But this carbon bumper case, also a good option, though a little bit different than the later case. A slightly different cutout, bigger aperture here. Let's start with the charger. Now, OnePlus, they were reluctant for a very long time to do any form of wireless charging. Just even your standard Qi stuff, they didn't want to do it. Now, they said, okay, fine. We want $1,000 from you, so we'll give you some wireless charging and a fast wireless charger to go with it. So this is what the charger looks like. Now, it is proprietary to this model, but this model is still backwards compatible with your other Qi wireless chargers. Okay. So it's got a fairly substantial power brick on there, as you'd expect to deliver that 30 watts of warp charge. Is this a fan on the back? Does it need to vent? I know this type of wireless charging can produce a fair amount of heat, and it looks like it's actually got a channel here on the top edge to maybe pull some of that heat as it sits on here and charges. A little LED location down at the bottom. Now, the way this is going to work, you've got this on your desk, on your bedside table, something like that. That's going to slot in there and start warp charging. So why don't we go ahead and plug this in and see if we can get that indication of warp charging happening. Oh man, if that doesn't get you motivated to charge up your device, 32% warp charge. The coolest part about these very fast chargers, you can practically see your percentage increasing, and you get the little message on the front of the display, warp wireless charging, so you know you're charging at that next level speed. 32, it's still 32. Where's the 33? Come on, give me that 33. Now, I don't hear anything coming out of it yet. If that is a fan, I'm not certain. It illuminates blue. Tough to see in here. It illuminates blue when you are charging. And there you go. We're up to 33% now. All right, we'll take it. 34! This is probably going to be my favorite accessory. Of course, if we throw the regular OnePlus 8 non-Pro, even with its pretty color on there, we're getting no action, no activity. So not compatible, unfortunately. Maybe in the future. But I'm glad that OnePlus is at least embracing wireless charging on their Pro model. And when I switch over to this device, you can bet I'm going to have this wireless charger over there on the desk, just warp charging away on the daily. It's fairly lightweight as well, in case you're wondering if you want to travel with it. It's a bit large for travel, but it is light, so I guess that's some kind of a benefit. Next up, let's look at the first-party cases. OnePlus has always had some of my favorite first-party cases, including this unusual sandstone texture, which is now in this cyan color. So let's pop this guy open. Oh, that feels a little different than in the past. Am I crazy? Maybe. No, all right, that's your typical sandstone, but the case itself is a bit different. It's not the ultra-thin sandstone they've done in the past. This one has a little extra protection around the outside at the expense of having the ultimate ultra-thin experience. Yeah, that fits on there pretty good. This gives you a pretty substantial amount of grip. For some reason, OnePlus does a gigantic cutout for the flash and camera module instead of independent apertures, and that's something that we wanted to address with later case. So we were actually able to close up some of that section, as you'll see on the website if you go check out that case option. But yeah, they do a fairly large cutout. That said, for a case that does have all-around protection, this is still fairly thin. It's not crazy thin. It's not the thinnest, but it's still fairly thin. It's not completely disrupting your interaction with the phone and the feeling of thinness around the phone. So that's the first case. The bumper case in nylon, and I believe it's EvuTech who makes these cases for OnePlus, as I've checked in the past. At least it has been in the past. Now this one has a nice liner on the inside, a nice soft touch liner. It's a full coverage case again, and this is a kind of weave, a woven nylon. It's a synthetic material, but it has some texture to it. This is pretty nice, and this one goes with the brand new fingerprint magnet. It's a million color. What do they even, I can't remember the name of this color already. What do they call it again? They call it Interstellar Glow. I'm giving it points just for putting the word interstellar in there. This is if you want to cover that up. If for some reason one day you want to dress it up, tone it down a little bit, you can throw this case on there. It's also fairly thin. Not crazy thin, but fairly thin. You still have access to your buttons here. And I think you're going to like touching this texture, though it's nowhere near as grippy, of course, as the sandstone. But having any kind of texture on there, it just reminds your fingers that you're holding onto a phone. Your other cutouts are everywhere you expect them to be, and it's going to give you a little bit of protection on there with the bumper aspect. Now this next one, and they've made this case for many years for various OnePlus devices. And it is, of course, going to have that aramid texture that you know I'm such a fan of. So much of a fan that I wanted to go out and actually make a case company around this texture exclusively. Now this, to me, this is just an addicting texture in general, which is the reason I'm such a big fan of it. Now what they've done with this bumper case is they've taken the aramid material and still built a shell into it. And I think that's a kind of nice compromise for somebody who wants a little more protection than the ultra thin case that we're making. So this is a good option for that type of individual. The downside is you're going to have cutouts for your buttons, so you have to push through the case, which I was never a fan of personally. I preferred to interact with the actual buttons on the device, which is the reason we went for the ultra thin model. And you can see here the EvuTech logo is actually on this case, so they've been a partner with OnePlus for a while, as I've mentioned in the past, if you've been following the whole development with the aramid cases and so forth. EvuTech, I believe, the innovators in the space, one of the first to use this material. So some pretty nice options here. Let's try this one on. Yeah, see, that's a kind of nice look. But again, what's weird is with the very huge cutout here, if you have like a blue phone, for example, it doesn't really match up all that well. These are some great first-party case options. OnePlus has been making some of my favorite first-party cases for a long time. I'm giving you some variety, some variation. There are some other brands that put out the first-party cases. You look at them, you know, I probably wouldn't use those. These ones, on the other hand, I would definitely use, and I like what they're doing with the different materials and textures and playing around in that space as well. And now color, even though this is probably a bit much for me, for somebody that's gonna brighten their day, that's gonna brighten their mood. But the most exciting accessory of the bunch remains. It's gonna be this guy right here, the Warp Charger. And I'm just gonna slap the phone back on there, and would you look at that? We're warp charging even through the aramid fibers. It's so exciting. 34%. I'll be watching this for the next half hour.